back to another episode of the Coaster 101 podcast. This week, I'm your host, Nick Weisenberger, coming to you live from Dublin, Ohio. We have a very special guest. Even if you don't know his name, you probably know some of the projects that he's worked on. It is the man behind Print My Ride Detroit, Matt Schmotzer. How's it going, Matt?
Pretty good. Thanks for the intro. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for being here. And so if the people that have been a Coaster 101 fans have been reading articles on our website, they should know you because we did an interview actually all the way back in 2017, actually.
Yeah, it's 5 years ago.
Yeah, that's crazy to like time flies. So I guess quickly first, for the people that haven't written that article, just quickly introduce yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you said, my name is Matt Schmotzer, and I am Print My Ride Detroit. And my whole, I guess, shtick is to do working model roller coasters, and specifically ones that are 3D printed, and now more so just working models in general. I met up with you guys back in 2017 because I did a working 3D printed model of Invertigo, which is a roller coaster at Kings Island, and I think it was like a 1/20th scale. I can't remember the scale off the top of my head, but it was a working model, and you were nice enough to reach out and ask me how I, worked on that and what I did. And really at the time, this was 5 years ago, by the way, I was just doing this as a project to get noticed in the coaster, realm, as, trying to get my foot in the door to eventually work on actual real roller coaster projects and kind of just find my way to get into the industry. So it's funny because, back then I had no idea what I was doing and just trying to do something cool. And now I feel like I use that as a stepping stone to find my way to venture into new projects, cooler projects, and actually projects that I would like to think are in the industry and got me to where I am. And I turned a hobby or a passion project into now a successful side business. So I really think it's almost like an underdog story, and I love talking about it because just because I did it and I found my way doesn't mean anyone else couldn't and find their own way. And I think the point is, do cool projects, people will notice, and then they will give you opportunities.
That's awesome. That's an awesome story. And yeah, it was your vertical project is the thing that really caught our eye because before that, I think I'd seen maybe like someone do 3D printing for like a single piece of track or maybe like a car. But yours was the first like fully operational, realistic looking, like operating model roller coaster.
Yeah, and at the time I was following like Mike Graham and Phil Kaiser, and they had and Chris Gray. They did model roller coasters. Specifically, like Mike Graham had a working one, Phil had working ones, and I know you have some other articles on them on your website. And I was thinking, okay, they did cool things that got them noticed. How do I put my own mark? Because what you want to do is either find a way to do something better than someone else, or find your own unique way to do it. And what I was thinking, I could 3D print these. And as I was printing the track pieces, I was like, why don't I just build the full circuit? Why don't I, do the full layout? And I tried to pick something that I thought was easy and turned out to be a whole nother can of worms. But it just proved that, I'm willing to be dedicated to the project and stick it the whole way through. And I think that was the important part, just to find a project, dedicate your time to it, make sure it's successful. And I was, super ecstatic that you guys took notice and you were able to kind of like watch me as it progressed. So that was very exciting.
Yeah, I think that's cool how you share everything on social media so you can see how the project progresses and everything. And really, it's like I'm just kind of living vicariously through you in a way because, like, as a child, my dream was to always like build my own working model roller coaster. But at that time, there was like nothing out there. Like the internet was still just kind of beginning. I mean, there weren't really even any good, Connect model coasters yet. It was just like the original one that didn't have upstop wheels. It was pretty terrible. The CoasterDynamix didn't exist yet.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I was 14 when CoasterDynamix released the Scorpion, and I was like, I want that thing, but I didn't have the money for it, and I was a kid and I didn't know any better. So I was right there with you. I was like, I want to be involved. I want to do the models. I want to, do something coaster related. And it's funny because I think there's like generations of people that go through. It's like, how do I make my mark? And this is like my way. And I think you were in the same boat. It's like, I see like these cool projects. How do I make my mark? And I know, at least for your case, you have this awesome website that everyone goes to as a resource, and it's amazing. And I just wanted to find my little niche to contribute. So I feel that I like to give back, and I like to, or you made a great point. There's not a lot of resources out there. Everything's very secret. Everything's very proprietary. There's a lot of intellectual, proprietary, property, and they don't like to share it. And I like to be like the guy that's like, oh, coaster companies hate Matt because he'll just show you how to do it or show you what they're doing. And I started dabbling in it, but it takes time and there's no payoff for me. There's no reward financially. So I just do it out of the graciousness. And that's why it's slow. Whereas I like to venture into other things that are, worth the time. But eventually I'd like to show off more, because as there's more people that understand and can get that leap ahead, then there's more competition, more innovation, and it's better for the coaster community. So that's why I like to share it without, infringing on anyone's, IP. So
That's exactly what I was going to say too. It's like the one of the things that we love about your channels is that you don't just sit on this information. You don't just kind of like hoard the information to yourself. As you share the information and give back to the community.
that's what I'm trying to do. And I'm trying to do that more. And it is slow. And the other tough thing, it's I gotta find a way to keep it entertaining. Like I'm sure if it's not entertaining, people won't stay around. So I'm gonna try to find more ways to do that. But that's a long-term goal. I haven't done it yet. Right now, I've just kind of been like, hey, if you have no limits data, this is how you get it into a CAD software. Then it's up to you. But that's already a leap where people are already getting nervous, saying, I don't know what's going on here. So I might have to dumb it down a bit. But I'm trying.
Very cool. So I guess maybe let's get into some specific projects. So like your first big one was the Invertigo coaster, right?
Absolutely, yes. Which I know you have an article, and we don't have to talk too much about that. But yeah, it's a working model of Invertigo. It's an inverted shuttle boomerang, and it fully functioned as the real ride. There was a lot of challenges that went into that. I will let the listeners go check out your video. I don't want to dwell too much on it if you don't want to, but that was really what made the foundation of where I am today and what grew into other projects.
So there's a lot of things you learn on that project that could withstand.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I will put in the show notes the link to that article and the some of the videos as well. So after that project, what was the next major one you worked on after that?
And this is probably where we kind of venture away from everything that we've been in touch, but from that, I wanted to get a picture of the model next to the real ride. And at the time, and like this is like 5 years ago, I don't know if there was like a PR person at Kings Island or not. I couldn't find anyone. And the only person I really knew of at Cedar Fair that was really outgoing was Tony Clark. So I reached out and I said, hey, I got this cool model. I just want to get a picture of it next to Invertigo at Kings Island. Do you like have any contacts? And he goes, hey, cool, this is great. We'll hook you up. But would you like to make a model for our new ride? And remember, this is 2017. And what opened in 2018? Well, that was Steel Vengeance. And so he says, do you want to make a working model of this new ride? And I go, yeah. Who would say no? Only an idiot. So I actually, as an idiot, said yes. I would love to do it, not understanding the amount of work and time that would go into a project like that.
The scale of the ride itself is so much bigger than Invertigo.
Absolutely. And that was the other thing too, is we had a whole debate on the size of the model. And then once we settled on the size, I was like, dude, this is still ginormous. I was actually voting to make it bigger than what it was. And Tony at Cedar Point was saying, hey, we need to make this smaller. It needs to fit in a room. And I was like, but the physics, like from my experience with Invertigo, I was like, I need to make it a certain scale. Otherwise, I don't know what I'm doing. And there was a back and forth, and we compromised on a scale, which I wasn't really comfortable with, being so it was a smaller scale. But I think, you would know, as seen it in person, it's still huge. And it's a much smaller scale. And there was a lot of other challenges that came with it, but I agreed, and it was great. Like
wasn't one of the limiting factors being able to fit it through the doorway?
Yeah, so that was another whole thing, because it was going to sit at the museum in Frontier Town at Cedar Point. I was thinking like, oh, there's a garage door, like a retractable door. I was like, yeah, we'll just throw it through the back. Well, when I was talking to them about transporting it, they said, "Oh, by the way, there's a wall on the other side of that door, so you can't just like move the model in through the loading dock." And I was like, "Uh-oh, that's not good." So after some, back and forth, we found out we had to move the model through the front door of the museum, which is no joke, 2 double doors. And I was like, "Uh-oh, I didn't design the tables to come apart that way." We had to take the lift hill off. I thought we were going to move that model into the museum in about 2 hours, and it almost took a full day. Just like taking parts apart, moving it in, and that was a challenge. The fact that we wanted to get it all done and complete before the ride even opened was a challenge. There were so many things that I had never dealt with. Just with Invertigo, I knew stuff would take longer than usual. But the cool thing about the Steel Vengeance project is I actually felt like a coaster manufacturer. I had to make sure this thing actually worked by the time I got there. And the cool thing is everything went wrong. So I learned really fast, like, okay, your model is not working. How do you entertain the park to make them happy? What do you like? We found very creative ways to make sure both parties were satisfied with what they were getting. Because think about this. If I was Cedar Point, I said I wanted a model Steel Vengeance, and then your manufacturer said, "Hey, it's not going to work by this date," and you're like, "Well, people are expecting, or like, what are you going to do?" So we thought of creative things. Like I was like, "Oh, well, I'll come on the weekends and people can watch me build it and ask me questions." So I became a living exhibit, and that was the solution to it not being done, which I actually think was even better than just throwing a model there, because people were very curious about what I was doing. I had no problem interacting with people and answering questions. And I think it was actually more fun. And I know we kind of chatted about, just like to make the physics work, I had to make like the trains just weigh a ton. And we were talking about that. And it's funny because you talk about real coaster design and they don't even think about the weight. And really it boils down to the friction, which in my case, I need to maintain the momentum to eliminate that friction factor. So I had to learn on the fly a lot of things, and it was a whole nother experience of how, not necessarily the engineering behind a project like this, but just like the project management and interaction with the park. I learned a lot there, and that is priceless to me, because then I really understood what they were looking for, and how to make sure they're happy with what they're getting. So that was invaluable to me, and I really enjoyed that project. And right now, the model actually had to get moved around because they wanted to renovate the museum. It's actually in the arcade, and it's a static model right now. We couldn't get it to run reliably. But in my mind, even with all of the hurdles, I think the project was a success for me, because the park got a very cool model. It looks cool. It doesn't work, which it is, what it is. But they got something that people were talking about. I got the recognition, at least in the coaster community, to at least get people interested. RMC was interested. CoasterDynamix was interested. A lot of other people were interested. And I got to meet and interact with a lot of different people. And actually, from the Steel Ventures project, that's actually how I got hooked up with CoasterDynamix. And they said, "What did you design it with?" Like, the model. And I said, "Oh, SolidWorks." And we do work in SolidWorks. And they asked me to do some freelance work for them remotely. And I absolutely said yes. And that's kind of how I got my foot in the door there. And that's how that partnership came out. So all I'm saying is, even though the project had a lot of issues and it didn't go as planned, the actual end result was a net positive for myself, Cedar Point, and also other people within the industry. So I would just say, to kind of, put this all together, is Cedar Point took a risk in me. And I think the industry as a whole, and Cedar Point and CoasterDynamix and myself and every party involved, there's a net positive out of it, even with all the issues we had, so to speak. So very positive experience, and I really enjoyed it. And I actually thank the Cedar Point for, just taking, putting their neck on the line, just trusting a kid that was like, "I want to do this." So that was great for them, and I thank them. Yeah.
Was that the first project you worked for CoasterDynamix? Was the coaster cutouts?
So no, actually it wasn't.
So you did Steel Vengeance, and that led into working with CoasterDynamix.
Yes. So if we take a step back from cutouts, when I was working on the model before I tried to get it done the first time. So this is, let's say, still 2018-ish. A lot of people took notice, and that's when CoasterDynamix reached out to me and they said, what are you designing this model in? And they were actually in conversation with me on Reddit because I posted a couple pictures, and they said, this isn't going to work, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, nah, screw you. I'm going to make it work. You watch. I guess they win in the end. But they said, what are you designing in? I was like, I'm using SolidWorks to design these. And they said, okay, cool. Well, we design nanos in SolidWorks. And actually, you can find an interview with Jack Reimer. He's the owner of CoasterDynamix. And he did an interview, I think it was with Ace, talking, and he goes into detail about, how he met me. And it's the same story. They reached out and said, hey, you're doing all this cool modeling. Can you, we have to do like 20 nanos for the 2019 season. Can you help us out? Because they're just swamped. Like, they have to do all sorts of stuff. They have so many projects going on. They have like CoasterDynamix, CDX, nano coasters, all sorts of stuff. And I was like, yeah, sure. Just let me know. Like, I love roller coasters and I'm really an enthusiast like everyone else. Like, tell me what you need. So they gave me a list and they're like, all right, if you can do these in like the next 6 months before May, I think it was like November, he hooked me up. He's like, if you can do these next, 20 models in the next 6 months, just that'd be great. I did them all in like 3 weeks because I was like, yeah, like I just love this shit. Like I was all about it. I was so excited. Let's put it that way. I'm still excited.
Did they have any like instructions or procedures like how to do it, or did you kind of figure out?
Yeah. Okay. Way? So So let me. So I did skip that. So Jack had his engineer Dan Linden. He met up with me. We got on Skype, and he showed me the process. He's like, "This is how we do it. This is our guidelines." They told me what I needed to do to satisfy, the criteria that CoasterDynamix, had solidified over their years of developing the product. So yeah, they showed me exactly how to do it. And now let me jump back to where I was. I was like, yeah, I'm like so excited and geeked out that I just knocked them all out. And they're like, wow, you did these really fast and they look, pretty good. So they actually asked me to continue doing them whenever they were overloaded with work. And I think I don't keep track, and I don't know if they do, but I think we're at 150 nanos, and I think I've done 82 of them. At least the last time I checked, it was like 82. I know I've done 82 of them, but I've done a lot of them. And I think I've done almost half. Is that half? No, that's probably more than half. But
do you have like a favorite nano coaster that you've made, or most challenging one?
They love to give me the hard ones just because they know I'll do it, because I'm a coaster nut. I have a tie for my favorites. The cool thing is you can buy them both off the CoasterDynamix website directly. So my two favorites are Dueling Dragons and Olympia Looping. They're sitting under my desk. But yeah, Dueling Dragons and the Olympia Looping, because they're just two iconic coasters. You got the B&M Dueling, and you got the classic Schwarzkopf European ride. Those were also both very... well, not very, but they were difficult because they're weaving inside of each other, and they had a lot going on. Those are my favorites as far as like layouts and just ones to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. I saw when you went to site, you brought this giant loop of Raptor. Is that the current project that you're working on right now?
There's a story behind that, and I wanted to talk about that too, which thank you for bringing that up. When I went to site, when they originally invited me in 2019, I was not doing cutouts, but I was doing the models. And I made a giant 0G roll, like that, like the 0G roll for Raptor, right? And when I drove it there, it blew up on the highway because I had it all together sitting on the bed of my truck. And it just blew up. It's on, so there's actually like model B&M track on the I-75 somewhere. Awesome. Going down to Columbus. And the point was, when I got it there, like half the track was gone, and there's pictures of half of a 0G roll, and everyone's like, that's weird, like what's this element? I'm like, it's half of a 0G roll, don't worry about it. So after the pandemic, they invited me to come back, and somebody asked me, like, are you gonna bring the Raptor model? Because it's really cool. It's actually a full Raptor train, and it's like really large. And I was like, I don't have a display for it. So And I haven't posted this yet, but I'm going to make a YouTube video showing how I designed it. And it uses MATLAB to take no limits data and then manipulate the B&M aspect. So basically making the triangular planar shapes to make it, a B&M track. And I'll post it soon. I just haven't had time. But the project was to showcase how to use, automation of your track design, and basically have a computer program do all the design work. So I actually wrote the program in about 2 months, and the actual CAD design of that vertical loop took, no joke, 2 days, because I wrote a script in MATLAB to basically design all of it, and then had another script in SolidWorks VBA to then bring it in and then just do everything. So the design of it took like a day. I think I did it. I brought it in one day. The next day I'm just setting up to 3D print it. And then I print, and it was very quick. And I'm going to do a video on it soon. But the point of that project was I needed to show, I didn't need to, but I wanted to show the kids. I was like, just because I had a failure doesn't mean I'm not done what I didn't learn. And what I did learn is just take the cool thing in parts and then bolt it together when you get there. So the cool thing is everyone that was at site for 2022, they all have a picture next to the giant vertical loop. And everyone's like, why'd you do that? I'm like, why not? Who doesn't want a giant 12-foot tall B&M inverted loop in their classroom?
Can't wait to see your future projects. Earlier you said you recently visited Universal and Busch Gardens, Tampa. So I got to put you on the spot here. Which do you like better, Velocicoaster or Iron Gwazi?
No, I actually knew this question was going to come. I will. Okay. So I am one of those, I like coasters for the sentimental, emotional connection. Not so much like, oh, dude, that one had so much airtime, or that one had so much XYZ. So with that said, I am on Team Velocicoaster. I like Velocicoaster more.
Do you want to give some shout outs? Where can people find all of your work and such?
Absolutely. So you can follow me, Print My Ride Detroit on Instagram. You can follow me on YouTube, which, as I said, it's slow, but I'm trying to get more videos there. That's also Print My Ride Detroit. Also, you can follow some of my work at CoasterDynamix. I specifically do the cutouts and some of the nanos. I do not do the working models with them. That's strictly them, but that's where you can find me. As far as shout outs, thank you for hosting me. Thanks for being in touch. You guys are great. And I guess I'll just give a shout out to CoasterDynamix. They've been really great. They support my work. They create the work. They manufacture the work. And yeah, I think that's all I got.
Thanks for coming on the show. And yeah, we'll have to have another follow up later on once you talk about your next project, whenever that is, or some other time down the future.
Absolutely. Hopefully not by 2027. So let's make sure it's not another 5 years.
All right. So that'll do it for today's show. Thanks again to Matt for joining us. And thank you for listening in. You can connect with the show by emailing us at podcast@coaster101.com or hitting us up on social media. We are at Coaster101 on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss an episode. And please give us a rating and review us wherever you listen, because it helps new listeners find us.